attacked. And, people no less than VIPs, VVIPs, and that is the situation that we have today. So, for a common man, today, because of this COVID situation, most of the people are working from home, and that is the situation wherein we find ourselves working through this cyberspace. And cyberspace is something, which is interesting to note at this stage. Why? Because when we were kids, we used to be told that space was the frontier where no man had gone before. Remember that Star Trek thing used to happen,
yes.
and Captain Kirk used to be there,
Yeah.
Well, those things are passé now. It's a thing of the past now. What we have now is the cybersecurity, cyberspace now. Now, we have with us a prominent professional who is an information security and management professional as well. He's been into this domain for almost 2 decades, Mr. Dinesh Bareja with us. Now, before I take up this topic anywhere else, Mr. Bareja, can I request you to please explain to all of us what exactly is this cyberspace, cyber security, IT security? These are big sounding words. If you could just simplify it for us so that we can take it forward.
Well, thank you, Pradeep, and for this request, as well as good evening, everybody, and the fellow panelists, as well as the attendees. I hope you all will have a good evening with us. I need to sort of put the context straight as far as cybersecurity is concerned. Cybersecurity is a term which has evolved over the last, I would say, 10, 12, 15 years, or actually it's probably now more than 2 decades in the real sense of what we are practicing. But of course, computer security, the history of computer security can go much more further back, and there is evidence of it having, of computer security being practiced by the Americans, the agencies way back in the 70s or even earlier. That's what I know about the history of computer security. So it's not very difficult as on date today, but in the sense I always say that it's not rocket science. Cybersecurity is more about common sense. And the reason is very simple, is that because cybersecurity, as we see it and as it affects us, like you talked about the Twitter, hack of the day before yesterday, where the whole world is talking about. Why the Twitter hack happened? Because somebody working in Twitter was probably compromised, as of now, with the reports that he was compromised, and the malicious guys got access to the backend, and they could mess around with that. Okay, it's like somebody being able to get his or her hands on the keys to your house or the safe in your house and being able to open your safe and do whatever with that, or getting your password and being able to play with your system. So it's common sense. It's because the way things are today, technology has overtaken our life, or it has embedded itself in our life, that everything which we do is technology enabled. So our life is technology enabled. And we have to see that every single slice and aspect of our life is being converted into cyber, and that is what we have to secure, or we have to take care. Even if we don't use the word security, because that is where people sort of get scared. But we talk about taking care of our life, and we talk about taking care of our cyber life. Because cyber life, you carry a phone. Everybody carries a phone. You have to take care of the phone. You have to take care of it because you're talking on it. You're saving data on it. It is supposed, it's like, they say that it is recording you even if it is not switched on. So all those things, it is about taking care of your life in a very realistic way, and listening to your sixth sense. There's an old saying, Thina, that all that glitters is not gold. And that is where it all comes from over here. So that is what cybersecurity, from my perspective, in a nutshell is.
Right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And before I go further, I'll just remind everyone who's watching and listening to this broadcast webinar is that this particular session has been brought in because of Cyber Peace, because of UN Global Compact, the CII, and Young India. And that brings me to the next logical issue, wherein I would request Manoj to come into the picture. And Manoj is an insurance veteran. He has been with insurance companies. He's got over 2 decades, almost 2 decades of experience in the insurance sector. He's into liability insurance, and currently he is the senior VP, if I remember correctly. I hope I'm not. No. I understand. He's sorry, an executive VP. I stand corrected, Manoj, there at that point. But tell me something. In your role as an intermediary, you are the main channel through which a client or an insured and the insurance company come together to basically ease out this problem of cybersecurity. Now, tell me something. In your experience, what you have seen around with the clients, how do you think a common man perceives the threat of a cybersecurity, and what are the basic ideas that you pass on to him so that his feelings are assuaged?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, all. So, in our function, so we represent the customers. So, if you look into the cyberspace, the awareness amongst the customers is very high, especially during these times. So, customers are on digital space. People are working from home. So even though this product came into the market in 2014, and last 5-6 years, what we have seen, the customers are aware of the exposure. So say close to around 500 corporates must have bought this program. But the awareness is much more than that, the kind of products bought by the market. So at this point of time, so our job is much easier. Everybody is aware of this exposure, which is not a perception, which is a reality at this point of time. So, and now, what is the demand side, which is very high, as far as the supply side, which is the insurance companies. So earlier there were few insurance companies. Now many insurance companies are providing this solution. So there is a matching of the demand with the supply. So this is the right time to see good, the deal making in the market. So
point noted, Manoj, and that brings me to an important issue of some of our viewers and some of our listeners who would like to ask questions. You may either put it in the Q&A section or put it in the chat. We are open to that. We will be taking it as far as possible, as far as practical. Now, that brings me to my third and the final panelist that I have, Mr. Ramneek Goyal. He's another insurance veteran with almost 18, 19, 20 years of experience in the liability and insurance sector. Ramneek, we just talked about what exactly is the cybersecurity area about. We also got to know that, okay, there are clients, who are more than literate as far as cyber issues are concerned. From the insurer's perspective, how do you see the challenge of COVID-19 playing right into the hands of the insurer, wherein your market has just increased?
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So if we look at cyber, as my fellow speaker Manoj was talking, it's though it's been a concept for probably a decade or so, more than a decade. But in India, I would say it started somewhere 6-7 years back, wherein insurance companies started offering solutions. And obviously, if you see last 5 years, there's a really kind of lot of awareness which has happened in terms of, I would say, general public as well as corporates. And then now we see a lot of, in fact, earlier it was really tough job to tell clients their exposures are and how to go about buying and all. But nowadays, there's been surge in queries, surge in requirements, and people have been aware thanks to the media and thanks to, I would say, the frequency of incidents at which, the kind of incidents happening. So incidents are very, very frequent, and I think there is no day where there is no cyber attack. And I tell you, there have been there have been attack on almost all companies, indirectly, directly, or probably some of them, they may not be, they may not be even aware of that they have been attacked. Or some of the companies have been, or some of the guys have been waiting to be attacked. So in general, I would say everyone is vulnerable to cyber attacks. Now coming to this, post-COVID, I would say, COVID has obviously changed the whole landscape of the, I would say, humanity in terms of whole society, worldwide. In terms of various parameters, obviously one parameter is kind of a cyber risk. As we see, there is a huge dependency for each of us on kind of connectivity and information transfer. So when we look at information transfer, earlier I tell you, cyber was typically data breach, privacy, now I think cyber has become so powerful. The risk, it has actually moved to business disruption, or it can actually disrupt the whole business. It can it can actually result in countries standstill. We have seen number of cases in past wherein the whole of the plant, in fact, there was a case of nuclear power plant which was under threat because of cyber attack. And now, if we look at COVID, obviously, as we all know, people have been working from home. People have been working from home. They have been attending classes from their particular place of residence. So there's a more and more vulnerability. And also, when we look at people work from home, they are working from their own network. It is not really the company's network, which is normally very, very strongly protected with so many kind of protection mechanisms like firewall, etc. But a lot of people, they work from their own network, which actually leaves the whole, I would say, organization vulnerable to cyber risk. So this is something which has brought in more and more, I would say, exposure to organizations as well as individuals, for their cyber risk perspective.
Ramnik, I would just like to interrupt you at this point. One of our viewers, Mr. Manoj Parikh, wants to understand as to which are the most prominent industries which have been going in for a cyber security insurance policies from your perspective.
Yeah, so good question. See, if we look at industries, each and every industry is exposed to cyber, be it ports, be it medical industry, be it general manufacturing, pharma, IT, be it e-commerce, be it banking and all. Exposure is for each and every entity or each and every kind of segment. But yes, degree of exposure, I would say it varies depending on the past data and records. In fact, some of the reports which have been published by some of the experts. So what we look at some of the industries which are really, really kind of exposed. One is in India, if we look at banks. Banks are the entities who are having highest exposure. Then we look at BFSI, other than banks, financial institutions. Then also we have e-commerce companies. Then comes your health companies, health, not I would say health risk, but in general health providers like hospitals, like you have pharma companies. Then we have some of the, in the chart, you look at some of the industries like energy and probably educational services, etc. So obviously, banks are topping the chart.
Right, point noted. Dinesh ji, I'll come back to you because one of our viewers, Kiran Parashar, would like to understand this, these, and the question is very simple. Do you think that because of COVID-19, our entire technological system was compromised, or we've had cases before this prior to COVID-19 also?
COVID-19 has just brought in, a new, I would say, age of risks and vulnerabilities. In terms of existing or previous prior to COVID, it's not that the attacks were not there. It is not that compromises were not happening. The biggest ones have happened earlier. And during the COVID, again, there have been different variations of the same sort of this thing. So like, let us take domain, fake domains or, online fake, I would say, stuff happening. And COVID related attacks, for example. So somebody sending today, earlier they were sending mails with attachments like, Priyanka Chopra has a fight, something like that. And people would like to open a mail like that. Today they are sending mails which have attachments like COVID plasma available, that sort of stuff. So people
something which is more appealing to the common man, so that he opens it.
The variation has changed. The variants have changed, of course, and then there are domains being registered to lure people. And even CyberPeace had done a report on that. I think they had, I would say, identified about 600 or 1600 domains which were, fake domains out there. Just lures, basically. So this is huge anyway. And one more thing is there, that by virtue of staying at home, working at home, like Ramnik and Manoj have also pointed out, the threat or the risk surface has gone so big. It is out of the organization. Where you were inside the organization, you were protected. But now you're outside the organization, and it is very difficult for an organization to send out to keep, maybe like, let's take TCS, for example, 4.5 lakh employees working from home. Earlier, there were just maybe like 30 or 40 locations managing 4.5 lakh people. Today, they've got 4.5 lakh endpoints in different locations. Now that is you see the challenge which has now come up, and the challenge for the insurer also to be able to provide cover for those 4.5 lakh endpoints. Earlier it was 40, let's say 40 locations. Okay, today it is 4.5 lakh locations, and how do they really, be able to quantify the risk in these different locations? So I think Ramneek and Manoj would be able to give us a better idea on that. Yeah. But I hope that answers the question which you had on mind.
No. In fact, I would take the next question with Manoj himself, because one of our viewers has asked a very relevant question, and from the perspective of the client, the gentleman would like to understand, the volumes involved because of a cyber breach, let's say in a financial institution like a bank. The volumes involved is huge. If that is so, the question says that how do you charge a low premium for a cyber insurance policy?
So, sir, premium is calculated on the basis of various factors. When the product was launched, the premium was very much on the higher side. When markets started seeing premium coming in, the premiums, there was a moderation on the premium, the rate. So there are various factors. One is the exposure, especially with respect to banks. The exposure is very high because most of the breaches which with a financial gain intent. So where is the money? Money is lying with the banks. So obviously bank is a very high exposure. Second one is a healthcare, where the health data, which is also very highly exposed, the piece of information. So these kinds of, so one factor is the exposure. Second factor is that, what is the kind of the claim in that market which is seen? So the insurers know that, there is no enough book in the premium pool to pay the claims. So that is a one factor which is there. Then security awareness and the level of security with respect to that industry or the company. So say that, in India, in 2014, the first buyers of this piece of insurance was IT companies because of a contractual requirement. But we have not seen any claims from that side. There were very, very few claims. Then we started seeing actually the exposure-oriented customers buying this insurance. Then we started claims coming in. In that segment, the rate will be slightly higher. The bank's exposure is rated highly compared to a manufacturing, the sector. So that rating is there. So obviously there can be some kind of an extreme situation which the premium rating is not going to justify that kind of a claim situation. So those can come, but in India so far we have not seen any claims. But in the US there have been a couple of situations where the policy limit was reached. In India, when we speak about the claims are in the range of say $1 to $5 million, not beyond that.
But Manoj, you must remember that India as a nation is not a litigate country, So there could be instances where quietly, I've had a hacking of my system and, I was blackmailed into paying some certain amount which you'd never get to know. Is it not a fact?
So, sir, I just want to tell you the litigation is a liability part of it. So, as far as the cyber insurance is concerned, the maximum payout which happens for the first party expenditure and the compliance with the regulation. So in India, we don't have a strong privacy regulation because if you look into the worldwide jurisdiction, almost 132 countries have got very, very heavy privacy legislations in place. So in India, we have only bills. So far, we are relying on the IT Act 2000 and 2008 amendments. There are a couple of sections and 43A which is there. Again, we have seen a judgment last week under this section. So what happens under the cyber insurance policy, whenever there is a breach, you would require good amount of the forensic expenditure, containment, mitigation expenditure. Then if you have a strong privacy law, you would be spending more money to comply with the regulation with respect to monitoring and the notification. Most of the large payouts happened under this policy with respect to the monitoring and notification. So one gentleman has already raised a question that with respect to a bank, say if a 1 million record is 1 million client information is compromised, you have to reach out to 1 million customers and inform them that their information is breached. And then you have to monitor for say 3 to 6 months time this information, financial information is not misused or taking actions to reduce the misuse of this information. That is a huge spend. The data liability part, which we have not seen across the globe, that has not played out in a large manner. So
like we get the general drift of what you're trying to communicate to us, Manoj. Thank you very much. But you talked about the IT Act of 2000 and the amendment bills 2006 2008. Ramnik, that brings me to the next question. Do you think that the IT Act of 2000 and their own amendments, the data security and private thing that we're talking about, have they actually acted as a deterrent as far as cyber crimes are concerned?
If you look at acts are there, but at the same time, how you enforce those acts, that's very, very important, whether it's India or wherever,
Mm-hmm.
So there are number of acts, there are number of frameworks which are provided, and they are for, probably I would say overall benefit of the society, but at the same time, at kind of implementation level, at, ground level, how these kind of enforcement agencies act upon that and take that kind of I would say the implementation to the next level. Otherwise what happens, whatever the framework you put in place, unless you enforce the framework, it is of no use. At the same time, coming to your question as far as deterrent, yes, when you have in fact, if look at the whole data globally also, the markets which are regulated, there are comparatively, I would say, a bit of sanity in terms of attacks or risks which are there. But at the same time, I think it's very, very premature to say, whether it's really deterring or not. Because if you see in India, if I look at the Indian, in fact, I would talk about data points. The cost per lost record, in India is about $70, and globally it's around $150. I'm talking about data breach, it's some of the data breach reports we have seen. These data points are from them. And, average count of data breaches in India is $35,000, the count.
Wow,
and
that's a huge amount.
Wherein global is only 25. So if you see count of data breach in India is actually kind of probably 30% or 40% higher than global data breach counts, So whatever the acts are in place, they are there, Act also have got its own benefits and advantages for the society. But at the same time, I think, in terms of even if you go to these police station, cyber crime cell and all that, know how sometimes awareness levels are. So besides putting the act in place, I think what government, the need of the hour is to have that enforcement done, in the act. And also, some of the one is that obviously enforcement done by the enforcement agencies, and also the repercussions. If someone breaches that, it should be really, really kind of such a huge deterrent that one would think twice, before committing that crime. And if you look at also Indian corporates, you will see not too many pure Indian situations. Indian corporate, that because when we are on global or world wide web, we are exposed to, whether we are sitting in India or wherever, but we are exposed to the whole, we are exposing ourselves via cyber risk to the entire kind of globe, So maybe that the customer is in India, the client or corporate is in India, but when they are having those kind of network connections wherein they are actually exposed to a hacker who may be sitting in Cambodia, who may be sitting in probably Colombia or anywhere in the world, So I think
in fact, Ramnik, what you were talking about, just one of our viewers, Vivek Bhajipale, says, what could be the implication of India's data protection bill on this entire cyber insurance? How would you react to that?
So, I tell you, as far as cyber insurance is concerned, as Manoj was also saying, it's a market which has emerged over the last 5 or 6 years. And if we look at it, it's been, in fact, I tell you, there are two aspects of cyber insurance. One is the corporate buyers, wherein you have companies who buy cyber insurance, which is how cyber insurance is typically known in India, companies buy insurance. But the other thing is, which is individuals buying insurance. So that is actually just taken place. I would say some of the companies have started that kind of protection or insurance policies for last 1 or 2 years. So that's actually, I would say, that's the in terms of act. And when we look at the act as well as scope of cyber, I think the next thing for us is, the individual cyber insurance, individual cyber protection, because a lot of like us, we have a lot of personal things on mobile. We are doing banking. I think mobile is life these days. So if anything, happens to our kind of overall personal security, I would say, in terms of information technology. So someone hacks into our account, or if someone goes into going for unauthorized transactions, or someone goes for our theft of our identity, or probably we are kind of victim of cyberbullying, cyber extortion, and so on. So
hey, halt. Ramnik, halt. The words that you are using, we do not understand it. Now, at this point, I would like to get in Dineshji. Dineshji, can you explain all these terminologies that Ramnik was talking about? Cyberbullying, hacking, phishing. What are these actually when we talk about a cyber crime?
Oh, these are very common, I would say. We call them attack vectors. And one of the most common attack vector is something which we use every day, that's email. So when we talk, and like I had said in the beginning, it's our real life being transposed onto the cyber domain or the digital domain by virtue of the tools and by virtue of our immersion into technology. And like we all have been talking about mobile, that's the biggest immersion which we have, and we carry it in our hand day in and day out. And the moment your mobile is not in your hand, you're sort of half lost at that time, because your sort of world stops at that time. Your messages stop and everything stops. Like right now, Manoj is on mobile also, right, Manoj?
Yeah.
He is, absolutely.
So Manoj is on mobile, and Ravnik, are you also on mobile?
That's true.
Yeah. So
in fact, our office laptop doesn't allow us to install Zoom.
Oh, okay. So now that's see, these are things which have to be taken care of course. Like now, when you talk about cyberbullying, children or even adults have been bullied all their lives. I'm sure all of us have been bullied by somebody or the other at one point in school or college or someplace. And the form of cyberbullying would be somebody just doing the same things to you in Siberia, okay, or phishing is another very, I would say, very common vector again, where somebody sends you a link and which looks like something and which is actually not something, and you click the link and you are conned into giving your credentials. So the very common vectors, yes, and I'm sure they were the first things to be included in a cyber insurance policy, to accept that would be paid out also,
So Dineshji, typically, if I get an email saying somebody in Nigeria wants to pass on some sort of a hidden treasure to me, and all I need is to deposit $1,500, what do you think I should be doing?
Well, you should remember what your grandmother told you. All that glitters is not gold. So if you had that type of good luck, you would have been richer than Mukesh Ambani by now. Rather, your whole family would have been richer than Mukesh Ambani. But like I said earlier, see, these are variants of the attacks. I remember going online in 1995, 96, when internet just came to India, and this Nigerian emails started coming sometime in 95, sometimes in 96 or 97. So you read it and you understand that there is something wrong, and of course, but there are people who fall for it, and those variants have changed over the years. There's another scam in the same manner which says that you can buy these seeds from somebody in Punjab for like 1,000 rupees a gram, and you can sell it to me for $1,000 a gram. And there are people who have paid lakhs of rupees. Then there is a romance scam. So you can, there are ladies and even gents who have been scammed, and fallen in love with a white woman or a white man whom they have never seen in their life. They just have spoken to that person and then sent lakhs of rupees to that person. So there are, of course, I do hope, as personal cyber insurance starts out, these sort of scams would also be covered, because these are, simply speaking, areas where this is more of a mental thing than anything else. It's not that somebody will willingly give his money or her money, but being conned into something, being robbed. So if somebody comes to your house and robs your stuff and goes away, you would probably be paid. So in this case, will the insurer pay? Is I think there will be a sea change required over here, but something to be considered by the insurers.
Sir, don't you worry about it. My next question will go to Manoj and to Ramneek, wherein they are going to confirm and tell us. Manoj, what exactly do we normally cover under in a cyber insurance policy that we have in our country, a normal insurance policy?
So, the cyber products are classified in two types. One is a retail product and one is a corporate product. So in a corporate product, when you look into it, it has got a first party expenditure coverage. So whenever there is a breach, the first thing is a forensic, then there is a containment mitigation. If data is lost, recovery of data or restoration of data. Then there can be other expenditure, like if there is a false news about the company with respect to a cyber breach, a public relations expenditure. So these are all the first party expenditure, and from the regulatory standpoint, which I do, the compliance cost, whether it is a notifying to each and every. So sir, you asked one question about that, look, if the bill becomes an act, whether there is an impact on insurance. There is a huge impact on insurance, because at this point of time, there is no legal obligation for any corporate to notify to all the customers or all the individuals about their compromise, their privacy compromise. Under this bill, there are provisions with respect to notification as well as monitoring in line with the GDPR provisions. So that is one part.
And
the second part, which
GDPR would be?
GDPR is a General Data Privacy Regulation, which is a EU regulation.
Thank you.
So that was introduced in 2016, and almost all European Union countries have adopted by 2018. So that is one of the the master law in the privacy space. So there are many other legislations, sectoral legislations and all there. But when you look into the policy perspective, that is a major exposure, notification and monitoring. That is a first party expenditure. It is to be paid by the corporate if there was no insurance policy.
Okay.
And then next one is also a compliance cost, which is also directly in the bill, and when it becomes an act. If there is a breach, and if the breach is attributed to any kind of non-compliance, with the security features not being there, or the law says some things are to be followed. Even IT Act and IT rules, there are some stipulations for every company which is handling personal sensitive information. That is a fine. So in Indian bill, or say there are fines with respect to say the data up to say around 10 crore and 15 crore. That is a big amount.
Manoj, I'm sincerely sorry to interrupt you, because we have just been joined by Mr. Narendranath Gangavarapu. He is the Joint Secretary, National Security Council Secretariat, Government of India. Sir, good evening and welcome to the discussion that we are having on cyber security and insurance.
Oh, thank you. Are
sir,
you able to hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. And we understand that you are running short of time, sir. Sir, could you just give us a brief as to what exactly is this cyberspace, cyber security that we have been talking, and you, like a typical ghostbuster, has been handling the entire thing behind the scenes, sir?
Okay. No. Just today, we had this. The COVID thing is something that's trending now, and everybody is talking about COVID.
Sir.
And today we had this news that we have reached nearly 35,000 cases in a single day, which was actually a big spurt that has happened.
Sir.
And this is going to stay. I mean, it looks as if it's going to stay for some time. And when COVID itself started, people said there'd be a big migration towards digital payments and digital transactions that would happen. And and when you start accepting cash, you feel it's having some germs on it. And I think, and we are talking in terms of distance education, all this meeting, the VC, for example, that we have today.
Sir.
VCs are quite effective. Once get to know the people, VCs are quite effective, I feel. And taking cash and then filling ATMs with cash in remote areas is a difficult proposition. But you can reach payments out to people if you have the digital infrastructure in place.
Sure.
So, for financial inclusion and digital inclusion, having good digital platforms is important. But then we have this issue of trust. And we also have the issue of a population that could be digitally challenged in terms of, the digital literacy challenged. So we have this issues of, how do you do capacity building for the customers who are there? And not only how do you do capacity building within organizations to secure the infrastructure? It's not that, what has happened with Twitter now, just because an organization is very strong, in terms of financial muscle, does not imply, and they also have very highly qualified people. It doesn't imply, that they're very secure.
Correct.
So there are lots of challenges in digital, especially the talk that's coming about is insider threat that they're talking about.
Uh-oh.
So how do you, address that? How do you, put some AI solutions so that, how the behavioral patterns are assessed, and then if some behavior which is outside the norm, you could detect earlier so that you protect. So issues are there. And especially when you talk of critical infrastructure going down, it's not a border war that's going to really affect a country. Border war is localized. You could actually push your forces there and fight it out. But when you have digital infrastructure spread across the country, and your adversary could actually reach to the heart of the country in terms of accessing those assets. So it's a real serious situation that we're in, and there are many issues that are there. You're talking of cyber insurance. It's a real, but insurance mostly it's been there for quite some time. It's mostly matured when you talk of life insurance or vehicle insurance and property insurance or crop insurance or, business continuity insurance or some things like that. And even sports persons, they also take insurance.
Correct.
But cyber insurance is something that, it's an evolving field. Because we had a case where, there was a breach, and then when they approached the insurance party, the fine print was there that, if the breach was because of some malware that had infected a system, that insurance would not be valid.
Mm-hmm.
So, though they had, and that breach, normally breaches happen because of malware. So, just because you have an insurance policy does not mean, that you're protected. So, the clauses that are there, and, it's good that you're coming out with this, white paper. Yeah. Which actually helps people in understanding, what is it that they have to look for to see that they are actually covered. And then, they don't wake up with a cyber breach and then find that they're not.
Sir, absolutely.
So I think
in fact,
that the initiative that you've taken.
In fact, sir, on the question of malware, sir, don't you worry, sir. I will take up Ramnik Goyal because he's from the insurance side. I will take it up with him on that. But sir, Vineet, I just wanted to understand, can we have that white paper released right now, because sir is already here? Yeah.
Yes, we'll do it right away.
Yeah. I think that is something which is...
Share my screen.
You can just present it.
So here you go. And I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. We can see it. This is the white paper on cyber insurance. And sir, thank you very much, Mr. Narendranath ji, for being with us, even though it's for a very short period. And honestly, we are grateful to the Cyber Peace and of course Autobot, who have actually worked hard to bring out this paper for us, sir.
Okay. And I wish you well. I've had early interaction with Cyber Peace Foundation, and you're really doing good work. We require people, especially coming forward to do this work, especially in the area of capacity building. I've looked at some of the material that you've brought out, and it's really very useful material for people. And I think you should increase your reach because India is a vast country, and it's a multilingual, multicultural society that we have got. And the unique challenges in actually reaching out to all the people. And I think, I hope that, you look into that and see how you get material into those languages that other people also understand. Other people other than who don't know English understand.
Fantastic, sir. We'll keep your suggestions in mind and we'll definitely come up with materials which are multilingual. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your detail that you read out to us, sir. And it was a pleasure and honor having you with us, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
We will just get back to what the question that was specifically raised by the Joint Secretary. Ramnik, please answer the question. He says that the fine wordings are there wherein insurers deny claims.
So I don't know about that particular case, malware, because as such, the policy doesn't have any specific exclusion for malware. You see, I tell you, what is malware? As we all know, it's like code written with malified intention. So malified code. So, if the policy excludes that, whatever the policy which was being talked about, I think there is nothing covered. So, in fact, there are some of the exclusions which are there in the policy, like, criminal act of the insured, probably intellectual property right, unlawful gathering of private information, or, some other exclusions like war, terrorism, which are standard exclusions. And this policy is fairly kind of, I would say, in terms of the way it is written, is comprehensive. It's like these are, I would say, to some extent, unnamed peril policies. The policy has, if I look at, it has insuring clause, which talks about security and privacy liability, which is basically security breach and privacy breach of the insured, which results in theft, loss, or unauthorized disclosure of personal information. Then it talks about alteration, corruption, destruction, damage to the data stored in the computer system, and denial of access. In fact, denial of access, especially when it comes to corporate, it could be very, very big risk, because
Ramnik, could you just hold your thought at that point? We have a question from Shubham Gupta ji, who would like to understand that will the current situation trigger the introduction of some exclusions? You've been talking about those coverages, but do you think that this current work from home atmosphere that we have because of COVID and probably similar pandemics coming in future also, you never know about it. So do you think they will, ask for some exclusions?
So see, when we look at exclusions, exclusions, the spirit of exclusion is, it is supposed to exclude some of the things which are not supposed to be insured, for example, some of the criminal stuff and all that. And also some of the exclusions are, for those kind of perils which are very frequently occurring. And at the same time, when we come to the, and also, one more point, some of the exclusions are with the experience of the whole insurance industry, when the cost of covering that peril is much more higher than the kind of premium which is anyways going to be paid. So these are the reasons exclusions are built in or put in the policy. When we come to the current scenario, though it's a COVID scenario, but I don't see specific exclusions being put in the cyber policy for COVID as such.
So I got your
The
point.
policy is pretty standard in terms of the coverage. Standard in the sense, I would say it's a kind of very wide scope cover, in terms of coverage points,
Okay, not an issue. Dinesh ji, I have a question from one of our regular viewers of the webinars that we have, Jai Govind Tripathi ji. Thank you very much, sir. Your question is being read out to Dinesh ji, an expert. Sir, Dinesh ji, the question is, as a risk management consultant, Mr. Tripathi foresees a huge risk of cyber hacking to manufacturing and power generation plants. Now, the question is, number one, do you think it is possible? Number one. And number two, do you have any idea as to whether these similar kind of industries, they go in for cyber insurance policies?
These industries, yes, I do know two cases, large industries in manufacturing who have taken up policies. I have not seen the policy, so I really don't know what has been covered. But like Ramnik was saying and has been said earlier, you used the word standard, Ramnik, standard policy. Now, see, COVID, or like we all know that cyber insurance is a small 6-year-old baby in India. Another 5 or 6 years in the West. Let's say about maybe a decade plus, slightly more than a decade old in the industry by itself, right? If you go back to the history of Lloyd's doing the first insurance or whatever. Now, the whole point is that we are still looking at it in the same traditional manner. We have a standard policy which has got 20 pages of small type, which nobody in this world has ever read, whether it's a life insurance policy or it's a fire policy or whatever. Okay.
I agree, sir. Absolutely.
More than half the guys who sell that policy has not read that. Okay. And you have one page on the top which actually says this is what it is all about.
Right, sir.
Right. And like Ramnik mentioned, the denial of data type of situation, which can be, all encompassing in an organization. Now, I had actually a point in mind which I've talked about it earlier in the last few years, a few times. I'm not very active on the cyber insurance area, but I've talked about this in terms of my thoughts.
Sir.
Is that there is an opportunity for the insurance industry to step up. You just talked about the government, and there are questions I see also that what is the government doing about awareness or whatever. But the cyber insurance industry, the insurance industry has not still realized that there is opportunity for them to become the driver for security. So like the question, which we had over here that about manufacturing and critical infrastructure. it is, maybe the largest manufacturing companies would be having it, but there is automation, robotics happening on the shop floor, even in the smallest companies and the largest companies.
Got it,
There
sir.
is danger over there. So whether it's workforce, it is health and safety or whatever, but they are covering it in the same manner as health and safety, whereas the ramifications can be much more bigger.
Got it, sir. I got
Okay.
it, sir.
Now, just to make one last point about the opportunity for the industry, see, why does one do cyber insurance or why does one do cyber security?
Mhm.
There are just, if you see, there is just 2 or 3 drivers. Number one is government compliance.
Mhm.
Number one, if the government says IT Act has to be followed, you have to follow the IT Act. You've got no choice about it.
Mhm.
Your second driver is the customer. Your customer contract says you must have ISO 27001 in place. You have to go to hell or high water to get it in place. You got no choice. There's a driver number 2. Okay, driver number 3 or 4, where you say that I am very, very, tech savvy or security savvy, I must have it in place. That is very much down the line. Okay. Now,
Got it.
that is where the insurance company comes in as a driver. There is InsurTech, which we talk about. A lot of things are being done over there in the West again.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether that is still to touch the Indian shores. But if the insurance company is the driver, when we say that you should be safe and secure and whatever, but have we ever told any customer that you should have proactive systems in place, preventive systems in place? Have you ever gone and checked or even asked that guy that I will audit you in the middle of the year? That is what, when you say when you put that as part of your policy or as part of your offer, along with providing him or her a discount. Today's discount is what? No claim bonus. But that is no claim bonus is your medical insurance policy, which every kid is this thing. But what have you done which is different?
I got your point, sir.
So I have a point here. I would like to just, it's a
yeah.
very good point he's raised, in terms of, it's about going beyond, it's really the holistic risk management. In fact, what we do is, one is that you have a contract in place as policy wordings and all that. Obviously, there are, it's a contract document. But at the same time, what we do is we look at, I would say, managing risk for the client in terms of his threat assessment, So what we do is we do his external and internal threat assessment. Basically, internal threat assessment is there are kind of questions to be asked, the quality of their probably systems, how they manage their situation, their backup, their probably, I would say, policies or control systems, and the strength of firewall, probably IT security audit, training mechanism, frequency and effectiveness, and also I would say IT access management. So many parameters are there, so there are questions asked, and on the basis of that, advisory is done. And also there is an external threat assessment. So you actually, there are a few kind of tools wherein you put that, kind of tool, the website of the insurer, the client or the company in that tool, and test the strength of that, what I would say vulnerability test. So these are the things which we actually do it for most of the clients, wherein we actually go beyond the concept of insurance. It's like, managing the risks. It's actually good for the client also, because a lot of times, they, companies feel that they are not at all vulnerable. They have not been attacked in last 60 years since the inception of the company. But when they, when we publish the report to them or, share with them, this is where your cyber risk stands. So sometimes it's an eye opener for them also. So I actually,
Ramnik, you see, they are the people who either you approached them or they approached you. One of our viewers, Mr. Parivalam, would like to understand, as to how can they get a cyber insurance policy and what are the policy terms and conditions. Now, Mr. Parivalam, these cyber insurance policies are available with all leading general insurance companies. And if you want to have the details, most of these policy terms and conditions are available on the website also. So in case you could just visit them and you'll get to know. In fact, Mr. Madan has asked this question and I will put it to Manoj. You see, what exactly is the proof that you are looking for when you say that a system has been breached? And whether a claim is, of course, genuine or not genuine is a separate thing, but how would you assess that whether a system has been breached? What kind of proof are you looking at?
Okay, so to trigger the policy, a cyber policy, which you require a couple of trigger points, which is one is.
But Manoj, please, when you say trigger, what is the meaning of the word trigger?
So to notify a claim under the policy. So that means that look, at this point of time, you can use the policy. You have bought an insurance policy. Now, this is the time to test whether the policy is responding to your loss situation. So there are multiple triggers, multiple claim trigger point under a cyber policy. So I just want to tell you, a breach, with respect to a breach is actually the disclosure of data from your care, custody, control which has gone. That is a breach. So now let me tell you that look, you don't have to have an actual breach. The beauty of the policy says there is a proactive forensic cost coverage is there. That means a corporate which is like a 24/7 monitoring service which is there, and their output varies on a particular date, and they suspect that look, their network is breached or there is an intrusion into their network, but it is not established. So now they can trigger the policy. The policy has got a provision to carry out a proactive forensic. In that proactive forensic, once the forensic is carried out, it is established whether there is a breach or no breach at all. So to that extent, the policy is matured. So there are some other triggers, like say if there is a false news about the company carried by any digital media or a print media, so you can trigger the policy at that point of time. So you need a public relations expert to brief the public at large. So if there is a notice by the regulator, so in India when we speak about regulator is IT Secretary of the state. Every state is a regulator under the IT Act. He has got jurisdiction up to 5 crore. So he can serve a notice on any corporate stating that look, you have not complied with the IT Act provisions or IT rules provisions at this point of time. So that is a claim under the policy.
Point noted.
If there is a DDoS attack, your network is interrupted, there is a material interruption to your network, and you are not able to carry out the business activities. Take the case of an insurance company. They are not able to book the policies into the system from multiple point of sales. So that is a trigger point which you can trigger the policy will respond. So there are multiple triggers under the policy.
And Manoj, I'll have to stop you on that, because the next question that I have for Ramneek is something which Mr. Ved Prakash Tripathi has asked for, Mr. DV has asked for, and there are others also. The question has been coming up, which is very common in the present condition. You see, most of us are working from home. Most of us have children at home, responding to the e-classes. What kind of precautions, Ramneek, do you think that we should be taking as a family, as an individual working for an organization? Like you said that Zoom cannot be downloaded to your system. Why? Because there are privacy issues with Zoom. Fine. But for a common man, if someone says we'd like to have a Zoom meeting, what kind of a precaution for someone who's has children going for e-classes every day?
So, when we look at precautions, some of the precautions obviously is, one is that we need to have a kind of proper antivirus installed. So these are some of the very, very basics, though I'm not expert on that side IT, but still I would say antivirus installed. And also applications, try and kind of have only those applications which we really use. A lot of times we keep on installing a lot of applications without even sometimes, we just get a link, click on the link. So as we talk about organization security, here also it's very, very important, whatever we get on personal emails, let us not really open each and every email unless we are really sometimes, sure. And some of the emails are having dubious kind of subjects. So we need to be educated on that, and also emails might carry a lot of times, obviously links and attachment. In fact, I tell you, a number of times I keep on getting health reports of someone XYZ, and also I keep on getting some of the emails saying that, your audit is done. In fact, I tell you, day before yesterday, something like that, I got one email, the subject was audit is done, something like that. And when I saw the sender, though it's not so easy, but sender, sometimes you sense that sender is something which is like a doubtful sender. So this is one of the kind of cautions one can take. And also, I think, maybe some of the security companies are there in terms of, I would say, individual systems. So though some of the systems can be installed, may not be as, I would say, strong firewalls or whatever as we do in corporate kind of networks, but some of the small systems can be installed, because obviously as compared to corporate, retail, individual people, they are not at that high risk, because corporate, the hackers, it's like deep pocket theory. So they feel that once they hack, it's like a mass, kind of access. They will get access to 60, whatever, 100,000 employees. So hackers also put programming, as strong as they can. May not be for retail or individuals to that extent, but still they need to be secure from their own network security point of view. So these are some of the measures one could be I would say taking,
I got the point, and ultimately what matters to us is that, as a family, as an individual, as an organization, we stay safe and stay far away from such issues that crop up in the cyberspace. In fact, I have another query from Maithili, and she wanted to understand if this is a new plan that has been created to cover cyber insurance. No, Maithili, no, this plan existed for the last 4-5 years. It's just that in case of the breaches, which is becoming more prominent because of the COVID-19 and people working from home, that this has come into prominence. I also have, sir, a question from Tashi, and she wanted to specifically, please forgive me if I've used the word she, because Tashi, I have a friend who is a lady, so I'm using the word she. Manoj, can the policy be customized according to the company's exposure?
Yes. So, sir, somebody asked about the question about the power and manufacturing companies. A normal cyber policy will not respond to that situation, the real exposure. Say, if the SCADA is compromised, the outcome can be a huge property damage. Property damage is an exclusion under a common, cyber policy. So here worldwide, the large manufacturing corporations, they do buy a very customized coverage, which is a cyber for BIPD exposure, say property damage and business bodily injury, and a business interruption arising out of that kind of a situation. So depending upon the exposure, you can customize the policy. Some of the large corporations, which they do write a manuscript wordings for them, so that is very much possible. Obviously, the rating and the premium will be on the different scale for that kind of products. It is possible.
Okay, fine. The number of questions are increasing with every passing minute, but before we end, I would like to ask another question. This has been sent to us by Shubhendu Das. He wants to understand as to what kind of a protection or a help can be provided by a cyber insurance policy in case of supply chain management sector.
So supply chain management sector, the most important one is the business interruption. So that at this point of time, there is a gap in the coverage, which is we call it in the traditional insurance suppliers, extension. Say if the network at the supplier's end is down and they are not able to provide the service to the actual, their customers, and there is a business interruption which is there. So that kind of a coverage, which is a contingent business interruption extension under the business interruption coverage of the cyber policy, which is not there at this point in time. But however, for their own business interruption, if there is any kind of a loss, which is arising out of their network is down, materially interrupted, which they would get the coverage in the first place. Otherwise, all other coverages are very much, streamlined.
I noted. Dineshji, probably I'll just take the last question for you. And this is from Dr. A.M. Sudhakar. The question is, do insurance companies go in for a compliance study, or is it an activity of a third party?
From what I've been hearing is that the insurance companies, you see, I'll go back about 6-7 years, like Manoj and all were saying, at the starting of cyber insurance in the country. I remember going to a sponsored dinner in a 5-star hotel and attending over there, and I was like, it was very interesting to attend that and meet a lot of people over there. I still carry those business cards in my wallet over here. So I asked somebody that, I said, do you know what 27001 is? He said, what's that? So I said, it's information security management system. Oh yes, okay. Information security, I know. I said, you don't know what I said, okay, fine. So I said, if you have to go and put in sell somebody a policy, how will you this thing? He said, we'll sort of evaluate. I said, who will do the evaluation? He said, I have my IT team. They will do it. I said, what if somebody puts a claim? No, my CIO is good enough to do that. I said, okay, very good. So, but we've come a long way from that, event, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if Ramnik and Manoj also had attended that seminar, that dinner. Okay. Had I met you guys in person today, I would have probably taken you aside and told you, hey, it was this so-and-so dinner and were you there also, So, but...
so that'll be done post this webinar. Don't worry about it.
No. See, the thing is what, like I just made the point earlier, is that, innovation is the need. And especially with COVID, and there are people and companies who have lost money, who are still losing money there. We are 4 months into the lockdown. And my prediction very simply is that we have another 4 months to go. Okay, before we start walking out of our house, feeling unsafe. And we have another 6 months after that before we can say that we can take off our mask in public.
Correct, absolutely.
Okay. Today, if you are sitting with me across the table and I see you without a mask, I will not talk to you. I will go away. That is the level of fear with people. Okay? And when we talk about what we are talking about today, so there, it is a need for every industry to innovate and to come up with that. Now, you see, Ramnik, you had mentioned about exclusions. We had talked about exclusions and the fact that something was not covered as per what Narendranath ji had said earlier. I remember that there was ransomware was refused by one of the insurers in the West because ransomware was pretty new, and today it is a part of life.
Yeah.
Okay, so evolved threats and attacks evolve every minute, every second, and so every single policy which you put out today and tomorrow there will be a marked difference. There should be a marked difference anyway. I'll give you another example, or I will ask you. I have a question. Let us say for both of you over here. Third-party risk assessment. Okay, we'll take the example of Target. Now, Target is the company which was hacked, and they have about a $500 million bill which they have paid over the years. Their air conditioning system was infected by virtue of their air conditioning mechanic who came and plugged his system into their into their control panel to repair the AC system, and eventually they had a $500 million this thing. So if that thing happens, like you said, that forensic guy who comes in and says that this is because of Prateek that Ramnik got infected, so I am not going to pay you. Will that happen? Or does any policy cover third-party risk?
Yes, sir. The first liability claim, the cyber liability claim settled in India, which is also happened with the third parties. The vendors' network was intruded, and the hackers passed through the VPN of the customer under the disguise of the vendor's employees. So those kinds of claims, there is no such restriction under the policy. The question which is looked into is that whether there is a breach with respect to the insured, whether how it happened is not.
Sir, I think I know who you're talking about because I asked you to share the.
Dinesh ji.
Give me a minute. Give me eight minutes.
Okay.
I asked you the other day. Can you share that name? You said no, and I think I know whom you're talking about. My dear sir, that was managed service being provided by that vendor. It is not a third party. So please see the difference over there. Anyway, I will leave it to you, Prateek, and maybe when we meet sometime over a drink.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. And let us not get into specific issues here because right now what we have been doing is trying to disseminate information about cyber security and insurance to common public in general. And sir, honestly, I've just run out of every single extra second that I had with me, sir. But before we close down, at the cost of repetition, I would like to say this to all the doubting Thomases who could be a part of our audience, who could be getting to know what we have communicated to people, is that the situation today is that after having discussed it with the three of you, I can simply say it's a situation of, what they said, Hakuna Matata. Don't worry. Please, absolutely don't worry. You people are in safe hands. Why? Because we have an organization called Cyber Peace to take care of things. We have an organization like Autobot InfoSec who's actually working on this. And such organizations are being supported by people like Vineet Kumar, Purnendu Singh ji, and of course, my good friend Puneet Bedi. Now, sir, Dinesh ji, thank you very much, sir, for having spent more than an hour with us. Manoj and Ramnik, you've been our fellow colleagues in the insurance sector. was actually a privilege and a pride to have interacted with you all here. And now, may I request the Vice President of Autobot InfoSec, Shri Purnendu Singh Ji, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Pratik. I would like to officially thank all the panelists here, Dinesh Ji, Manoj and Ramneek, and especially Pratik for taking up all the questions.
And yes, thanks from my side also, Pratik. You had been an excellent moderator. So you kept the audience engaged, all of us engaged into the discussion. So hats off to your moderation. Thank you so much for moderating the panel.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the viewers and listeners who were with us. My apologies, and on behalf of my entire panel, I would like to apologize that we could not take up all your questions, but maybe some other time, each one of you had very relevant inquiry, and we hope to disseminate the same through the good offices of Autobot, and of course through the Cyber Peace Foundation as such. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shimoni, for being there with us, and thanks to all.
Thank you, sir.